Jake Stuart with the National Sports Media Association, and today I am joined by Mississippi Sportswriter of the Year, Parrish Alford. Parrish, thanks so much for being here.
Jake, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, you first won this award back in 1999. To win it again, what does it mean to you now, Parrish, to win this a second time?
Well, it's always humbling to win any type of award or notoriety where you've been voted on by your peers. I know that there are a lot of good sports writers in Mississippi, have been for many years, and I know we have a strong history here. So winning it once and twice is humbling each time.
Well, you transitioned from the role of Mississippi State beat writer to an Ole Miss reporter, all the way up to the Daily Journal now as a college sports editor. What brought you into the industry way back when?
Well, you know what? This could be a nice place to say I wanted to make the world a better place, and just really wanted to write really nice stories about athletes and families. And I've evolved to that. But way back when, I just wanted to go to games. I wanted to get into games. Back in the mid 80s, you didn't have college football on television like you do right now. I was growing up in Denham Springs, Louisiana, outside of Baton Rouge, and following LSU. And they might be on TV that Saturday, or they might not. And I was not in a family where my parents had season tickets. To go to a game then was a real treat. And I was able to make a few, but not a lot. And I just thought in the 80s, how can I do this? How can I be a part of this college football scene that I see? I mean, these crowds and stadiums full, and the excitement that the games bring. And I was playing high school football at the time. And in my limited understanding of the world, I thought, well, I have two options here. I can coach it or I can write about it.
Sure.
And I chose the writing option.
Now, what made you, not just what made you make that choice, but who got you into sports writer? Who are some of your mentors and inspirations to become a sports writer?
I remember sharing that career aspiration first, maybe with a gentleman named Jim Kleinpeter, who worked for many years in and around Baton Rouge, spent many years with the New Orleans Times-Picayune. And Jim at the time was working at my hometown paper in Denham Springs, Louisiana. And I can remember standing next to Jim on the sideline at a spring football scrimmage, because I spent a lot of time on the sideline. But I was talking to Jim and telling Jim, I think this is what I want to do, man. I want to be a Jim Kleinpeter when I grow up. I want to go to games. I want to write. I want to do all these things. And so he was like, and so we talked about that for a while. And that was kind of a first kind of verbal commitment, so to speak. I'm going to do this, and now I need to develop a course of action. And of course, during high school, there was the high school newspaper, and there was the yearbook staff, and then there was the newspaper at Northeast Louisiana University. It's still hard for me to refer to them as Louisiana Monroe, but just some great people there who helped along the way, and really so many mentors, Jake. It would be hard to name them, but just people in Monroe and people in Baton Rouge. I would go home a couple of summers. I went home and worked at newspapers in my hometown, the Denham Springs News, the Baton Rouge Advocate, did things like that. But there have been many mentors along the way.
Well, I'm curious too, as long as you've been tenured in covering Mississippi sports all the way back in the 90s when you started the beat, what has been a few, if you can name a few, or just one of your favorite moments covering these teams as a sports writer?
Well, there have been a lot of interesting moments, as you might imagine. I started at the Meridian Star in 1989. I was there from 89 to 93. And I was the Southern Miss beat writer at the time. and Brett Favre and Clarence Weatherspoon were on campus in Hattiesburg at the time. So I covered Favre's last 2 seasons at Southern Miss. That was very interesting. Before his senior season, there was a car wreck, a very serious car wreck that he was in. A lot of some internal injuries, and look, they didn't know initially if his career might not be in jeopardy at that time. But he battled back and played in the season opener, or I guess it was week 2. He played in the week 2 game for the Golden Eagles against Alabama and Birmingham, and led them to an upset win there. Very, very big story then. Very exciting time covering Brett Favre and just seeing so many things. Eli Manning's time at Ole Miss. Jackie Sherrill's early years at Mississippi State when he led the Bulldogs to the SEC West title and a berth in the conference championship game there in Atlanta in 1998. There have just been a lot of big moments to cover, really in a lot of sports. So I've been very fortunate.
Well, I particularly love the Brett Favre story you mentioned, just because folks like from my generation, don't go back that far, don't know his kind of roots like that. That's pretty crazy that it took that much just for him to be in the NFL. Pretty cool story there, Parrish. I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you, what did COVID mean for your work, and how much did it change?
COVID changed quite a bit. One of the things we learned was Zoom. I never really heard of Zoom before COVID, and now everybody in our industry is rather fluent in Zoom. We know how to, press the hand raise button and get in line for, questions in Zoom interviews. And, and we didn't like that. We didn't like losing in-person interviews at the time. And I think we're happy to see that they have returned in most places, but there's going to be a place for Zoom moving forward. And it's good to see, the industry use the technology in this way. I mean, if I'm covering a night football game with a 6 or 7 o'clock start, and you tell me that there is a Zoom option for the press conference, I'm probably going to choose that Zoom option most of the time. Day games, afternoon games, I absolutely prefer the in-person option and don't mind going down to be a part of that from the press box and doing whatever it takes to get down there on the sideline and in the interview rooms. But, at night when you're talking about having to turn that content quickly, I think the Zoom press conference can be very helpful. So it's about moderation. How do you find a way to help technology like that help the industry? The other way that it changed, when we first got back into going to games again, there was that feeling of, are we doing this right? Are we doing this in the safe manner? One of the first college football games played after COVID, when they started really coming around again in 2020, was Southern Miss in Hattiesburg against South Alabama. And I remember going down for that game and going into a hotel room for the first time in a long time, and seeing how things were different there, wearing your mask in the lobby, and plexiglass up, and a lot of encouragement to remain 6 feet apart or do these different things when you're outside of your room, and all of these lists of the many ways they have cleaned the room. It was just a very different experience to be back traveling and spending the night in the hotel for the first time. I always found, Jake, during 2020, I felt like the safest place you could be during the pandemic was an SEC press box, because there were so many hoops you had to go through. Necessary, I say hoops, but not necessary safety precautions. So many things you had to do before you were cleared to be in the press box. I mean, and there was really, a science to that, and there was a system. They knew what they were doing, and it was mostly consistent throughout the league. And I got back in the press box for games that season, and It was different. It was odd, but it was not uncomfortable. It
Right.
was good to see the spacing in the press boxes.
Right. I'm sure it was. And you noted too about Zoom and just how, the positives, the benefits, the way that the two of us can interview right now and be miles apart is pretty cool. Oh, I want to ask you one last question, Parrish, and thank you again for your time and for being here. I want to ask you about advice. What advice can you give for some sports writers that are just getting into the industry now?
Just write, just learn to write. Other things will come. As I mentioned, hey, I wanted to go to games. I know that's a motivation. I know being around athletics is a motivation for many people. But if you just concentrate on your writing, learn it the best that you can, find the people you can learn from, establish relationships like that, because writing is going to carry you through so many different walks of life. And, I think sports writers, most of them will take pride in their ability to write news as well and to write different things for their organization. You don't you don't typically go through a journalism program with a sports only emphasis. You're learning everything, and learning to write sports might be the last thing that you do. Well, many people who will graduate in journalism have not learned about sports writing. If you take a career news writer and put them in a football setting, it might make them uncomfortable. But I have a background that enables me to write news and do many other things. And I think that's important, because as long as you can write, that's going to help you in so many walks of life.
Right. Some more. I love it, Parrish. And thank you so much for being here, the 2021 Mississippi Sportswriter of the Year. Congratulations on not just this award, but your previous award as well.
Jake, thank you very much. I enjoyed being with you.